Hello, I'm Alex Rakes reporting back on the Safer Bristol Partnership Executive Board. I'm reporting back on the latest meeting which I attended, which is the 21st of November 2013, around the key issues that we dealt with. Before I start, I should just say there's going to be major changes, in case you're not aware, in terms of how Safer Bristol operate on behalf of Bristol. It will actually be in some way disbanded. We know there'll still be a Safer Bristol executive of some kind. That's a legal and statutory duty, and we know the functions are going to carry on. But I'm not entirely sure of exactly how it's going to be, how the functions are going to be put throughout the council. But there are major changes afoot, and we're due to hear back quite soon as a board around what those changes are. So watch this space. I'll update you as soon as I can. So just to say sort of the key points that we covered, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because you can visit VOSCA's website, look out for me there, I'm an advocate, for more information, or contact me at SARI on 0117 942 0060. But the main points are, we were supposed to be looking at ROADS, which is the new drugs and alcohol recovery service, which has quite recently been commissioned, but they've moved that forward to be looked at in the February meeting. So on February the 20th, they'll be bringing that as an agenda item to update Bristol on what's happening with ROADS. I know ROADS have been going out doing information and awareness sessions all over Bristol, and if you wanted to know more, contact Bristol Drugs Project. Maggie Telfer's the lead there to find out more about ROADS, because it's quite a major new set of services for Bristol. They touched on the minimum unit price for alcohol, because that's something Bristol's in discussion about, whether we introduce that locally, and it's going to go to the Health and Wellbeing Board as an issue. I had to give a presentation on the new hate crime service, so I had to take one hat off and put another one on and talk about what's happening with the new hate crime commissioning. That presentation is available if anyone was interested. I could send it to them, the presentation I gave to the board. And I gave a fairly good overview of what's happening. We are in collaboration with, we're called Bristol Hate Crime Services, which is a collaboration, it's not a new service, of SARI leading the Brandon Trust, which is a learning disability charity, Bristol Mind, a mental health charity that's quite well known, and LGBT Bristol, helping us tackle homophobia and transphobia and biphobia. And I could tell you a lot more, but you can come to me and talk to me if you want to know more about that. Pete Anderson, who is currently and now, and I think continuing to be, the Safer Bristol or Community Safety Lead for Bristol now, he gave a performance report in terms of crime stats and what's happening. Overall, total crimes down. In the last 8 years, it's gone from 80,000 crimes to 40,000 crimes, so that's obviously a very positive thing. But there has been peaks recently for certain types of crime. I think violent crime's on the up. We've had domestic homicides, which is absolutely horrific. For the first time in years, Bristol's seen a few domestic homicides, and we've obviously had the murder of Bijan Ibrahimi in July 2014. So we've had some very serious incidents and murders and losses of life in Bristol this year, and I think that's mirrored across the country, and obviously we can all guess as to why, but it is a big worry. Overall, though, crime remains down, and social behaviour is reported slightly up, but not significantly so. There's no significant move on substance misuse. Bristol was in the top quartile of the country for people completing drug treatment. It's gone from 8% to 15%, which is positive. The violence against women and girls, those incidents are stable. They haven't gone up, although obviously we've had domestic homicides, which is violence against women. And MARAC, the number of repeat attacks on women through domestic abuse has actually started to reduce, which apparently is positive. Hate crime, they didn't have the right statistics, so we've actually challenged that. But I can tell you that hate crime statistics are significantly on the up for us. They're down overall for the police over the last 3 years, but they've spiked again this year, particularly after the Rigby murder. So I think we're thinking that might have had a bit of might have caused that. Yacht time, first time entrances and reoffending figures apparently are positive in that they're not too many. So I think that's mainly the key points around crime rates. Gillian Douglas then gave an update on the prevent agenda, and the main discussion was around the fact that the council officer Debbie Powell is due to leave, and there's concerns around, or due to be taken off that role. So there's concerns about how it will continue. The other thing that's useful for you is that RAP training, which is basically the prevent training programme, is free, it is on offer, and if you contact Safer Bristol or contact me, we can get the dates to you, because it's really there to encourage partner agencies and voluntary groups to attend. So if you haven't already been on RAP training to learn about prevent, then please do. It helps you identify people who might be at risk. Sue Mount-Stevens attended the last Safer Bristol board meeting, which was brilliant, and she attended herself to give an update on their new commissioning plan, on the fact that they've launched an integrated victims board, and the fact that they're looking at very much an integrated victims approach around support services, and their vision is to have a victim advice centre alongside the police. And they're just beginning to prepare for and draft their new needs assessment and police and crime plans for next year. There's going to be 9 plans, there's currently 6, but 9 plans across the different areas in Avon and Somerset. So again, that's well worth looking at, is in more detail the update from Sue Mount-Stevens. But you can go on the Police and Crime Commissioner's website too, it's all there quite clearly. We then looked at the Restorative Bristol strategy, and I could talk at length about that, we haven't got time, but Bristol has a Restorative Bristol board, and that's really quite unusual, I think, for a city, and that brings together key agencies around what's happening in Bristol in terms of restorative justice. Again, it has its own website, and Tommy Jarvis is the lead officer at Bristol City Council for this. And again, there's so much to learn about Restorative Bristol and what's happening. And they're running workshops regularly. I forget the date of the next one, but again, if you wanted to know more, contact me or contact Tommy Jarvis, or look on the Restorative Bristol Board website. We talked about mobile phone theft, data and actions. Gillian Douglas gave an overview of that, because that's one of the highest crime rates that now occur, particularly targeting young people and students, of which Bristol has many. 70% of victims were aged 11 to 30. And the sort of point is now that for young people, a mobile phone's it's like them being burgled, because they've got everything on it. So it's a really quite a serious impact, although it appears to be quite a small crime, but it's being taken quite seriously across the country, and there has been pilots of ways to tackle this, and they're trying to work with the mobile phone companies and the police to try and make it harder for people to steal them and use them effectively. We had an update on the multi-agency learning review, because we've had a non-statutory learning review for the murder of Bijan Ibrahimi, and again, please contact me for more information. There will be the report conducted by an independent chair with a number of us at the table will be public. It's going to be published, but we're waiting to make sure it's published at the same time as the report of the Independent Police Complaints Commission, because they don't want them to undermine each other. That learning is going to be of national significance. Bijan's loss of life will lead to probably the sort of learning that Fiona Pilkington brought about for us all, and more, particularly looking at hate crime and the lack of appropriate support for somebody facing that level of antisocial behaviour and victimisation. So watch this space. It's obviously going to affect Bristol. It's already been on national news, and it's going to hit national news again when those reviews come out. Mike Pryor then spoke about stop and search data. In Avon and Somerset, you're 6 times more likely to be stopped if you're black and minority ethnic. In Bristol itself, you're twice as likely to be stopped if you're black. You're less likely to be stopped if you're Asian. To white people this is, and that's something that Bristol's trying very hard, and Avon and Somerset are trying hard to counteract. I think, Avon Fire and Rescue gave a summary of their services and service pathway. The lead for that is Jim Wemyss, and they provided their stats and talked about how fire service are working with communities and partners. And again, for more information, you can visit the website or talk to Jim Wemyss at Avon Fire and Rescue. Do talk to me if you want his contact details. And excuse me while I just check through all my papers. We looked at CAT as well, which is the drug that is particularly being used, chewed by the Somali community, that's due to be criminalised. At the moment it's still lawful to chew CAT, but with a lot of pressure, particularly from the community themselves, but also by drugs and alcohol services, it's going to be made a category C substance. And it was due to be criminalised from January, but that's been delayed. I'm not sure why. And Bristol Drugs Project are working on that, and so do contact them for more information. We talked about the Safer Places launch, which is taking place this month, and there's been 35 places identified that will be safer places in Bristol, ranging from public buildings to shops, and that scheme's aimed at people with learning disabilities. Safer Bristol, SARI, Bristol Hate Crime Services, Avon and Somerset are all very much involved in that, and so are other services too. And the Crime and Policing Bill update, Pete Anderson spoke about that. Now that is the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Bill update, and that's really important because that's around the new legislation for antisocial behaviour and tackling it, and it basically simplifies the whole system, really reducing the number of different options there are to make it hopefully easier to use and more likely to be used. I think really that's the most important things to be aware of, apart from watch this space around what's going to be changing in terms of Safer Bristol. If you want to know more, as I've said, do visit VOSCA's website and look for me, Alex Rakes. Thank you very much. Goodbye.